I think I'm getting a divorce. What tipped me off was that I'm living in an apartment on my own, and my wife and kids don't live there. That was probably the biggest clue.
Will, welcome to the Awards Tour podcast.
Thank you so much.
I'm so excited to talk to you about this film. You're so good in it, but it seems like something that would feel very intimidating for an actor. I know you're funny. I know you've done comedy and improv stuff, but how much familiarity did you have in the stand-up world before you decided to take Is This Thing On?
I mean, really none. I was kind of a fan like everybody else. Stand up is such a specific and really tough seeming, at least from the outside, tough seeming discipline. And so jumping in and starting to do actual stand up was very, to use your word, very intimidating and kind of nerve wracking at the thought of doing it. I first started going up, I went up as my character and doing the material from the film. And it was nerve wracking. I already had a lot of like really healthy respect for what stand-ups do, and it just deepened that respect going through the process of doing this. A, through the preparation when I was going up and going to the Comedy Cellar every night, and then B, in the making of the film as well. Like it's such an incredible, what stand-ups do is so brave and amazing.
Yeah, I hosted a podcast here with my co-host, who is a longtime stand-up comedian. He's got his name up at the Comedy Store, still tours and does all that. And so I've like seen like kind of on the outside how tough that gig is. But what I really respected in your performance in this is there's an intimacy on stage, and this movie manages to make it even more intimate when there's just these scenes with you and Laura sitting in a closet talking about pickup schedules. And I think that would also be something where it's like you already have this sort of hill to climb of that. And then on top of that, you're having to do, I mean, stuff you've done before, but I don't know how much of this kind of drama have you really done on screen? We've seen you in a lot more comedies.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a long time since I've kind of exercised this muscle, and this is the kind of work that I wanted to do when I first moved to New York when I was 35 years ago from Toronto. And I came down and was working on this kind of stuff. And when I went to Lee Strasberg back in the day, these were the kind of roles that I thought that I would be doing right from the get-go. And my life kind of went in a different direction, a great direction, but different. So it had been a while in a lot of ways to kind of go and just do something like this. And it was a very, it was intimidating. It was scary. I tell you, one of the things I kind of realized was because I did have this, it was kind of like these two different elements to the film, as Alex as the performer and doing the stand-up, and then doing these very vulnerable, quiet, emotional scenes with Laura that have a lot of different, peaks and valleys to them emotionally, certainly, and that are very real and kind of genuine. Because I had these two things, it was so much that I didn't have time to kind of think about it too much. It was much more just doing it. And I gave myself over to, you have this sort of crossroads of like, I'm either gonna freak out or I'm gonna give myself over to this process and be as open as I can. And that took some work to do. And that's a testament to Bradley and him asking me to trust him, in those moments where I'm doing things that are really simple, where there's not even any dialogue, when it's just behavioral and it's just crossing a street or folding the laundry or throwing my keys on the counter and going and doing stuff on my own or driving the car back and, on my way to see my kids, all those things. That was a matter of giving myself over. And then the scenes with Laura, just, making myself as available as I could in those moments to try to let the scene play out and really discover whatever is going to happen, let happen in the scene. And I have this great partner in Laura Dern, the great Laura Dern, and that certainly helped. That's an understatement. Yeah.
I mean, you both were incredible. And to your point, yes, I think we've seen her do this so many times. I mean, I feel like she does it every year with a different movie, but what I loved in the scenes that y'all did together, and I thought it was an added element for how difficult what y'all did to pull off was the camera work. Because you have Matthew, or sometimes I guess Bradley, like right up on y'all, because the camera work in this, I feel, is another added element to why this is such a brilliant performance, because this is another thing that you kind of have to ignore. But I know that was like a huge amount of rehearsal, blocking, like I can't even imagine what that was. So I'd love for you to take us inside the process of bringing the camera into these very intimate scenes.
Well, we started when we were doing the camera testing in pre-production, and Bradley and Maddie Libatique and I were kind of running around New York with no permits or anything, just testing. They were testing out cameras, and I was kind of there to let light bounce off me and kind of shoot stuff. And we shot a bunch of stuff outside and inside the cellar as well as we were in that testing process. And that's where they landed on the language, the sort of the cinematic language of the film. And it was also at that moment where Bradley decided that he really wanted to operate. And Bradley joined the operators union, and he operated most of the film. So we're in these scenes, and Bradley's really close to me. All of that, we chose that very specific 1:6:1 aspect ratio. Everything's on one lens, on a 40 lens, and he's this far away from me at all times for most of the film. Certainly in the quieter moments and on stage as well. But what's funny is, because we do trust each other and know each other so well, and have been working on this for a few years, working on the script, knowing what we wanted to do, there's so much familiarity that all of it kind of melted away. And Bradley would talk to me during scenes, as he's operating right close up, and talk me through as we're doing, grab this, say this to her now, say something, tell her, whatever, all these kinds of things. In a lot of ways, it got my head out of thinking about the scene and just being present, listening and being present in the moment. It was kind of extraordinary in that way and very helpful to me. I really liked it. There's a scene in the film where my character, right near the end, comes on stage and he's filled with a lot of emotion, and he's just had this very confusing scene with his wife, and he's walking around. So I'm walking on the stage, and Bradley follows me with the camera out of the kitchen at the cellar onto the stage, and he's telling me, avoid me, avoid me, avoid me. It's a very charged moment, avoid me. And he's walking around me, avoid me, and sort of avoiding the camera until the point, and I just go into it. And because of that dance and because of that, it helped lend to the emotional quotient in that scene, and I just completely forgot, and I wasn't in my head, and I was able to just kind of be in that moment. And that was, definitely for me, like a game-changing scene, or very different from anything I'd ever done.
I mean, that's the gift of having, I guess, also an actor director who can
Yeah.
put themselves in the
For sure.
actor's moment, and what would they need.
For sure. And he operates he brings that sort of actor mentality to operating, not to just directing, but to how the camera moves, so that the camera's not sitting back observing. The camera's in there. The camera's almost like another character, if you will. Like he's operating it like a character.
No, I really wanted to make sure we talked about the camera work, because the movement in this is sometimes claustrophobic, it's sometimes anxiety inducing, and sometimes it feels like you want to curl in with these characters as well. One thing I also wanted to talk about, because it is a comedy movie, and there's great scenes in this where you're around with some real life comics, but then also some actors, and y'all are around the table. And that was the thing that I told Mark, my co-host, about, because that I've witnessed. I've been the random person in those comedy tables, and the dynamic of that was so good. Do you have a great story from those? Because I'm sure in between sets, they're like, okay, Batman, what's up? They're giving you the business. That's kind of the mark of you're one of them at that point. So do you have a great story from that?
Yeah, I mean, actually, it was really imperative that we capture that dynamic in a really real way. So for those who don't know, most of the comedy stuff we shot downstairs at the cellar in that main room. And then upstairs is the olive tree, where all the comics do hang out on those benches. And they do throw their jackets on there when they go up downstairs. And they do all talk before and or after. People come in and out, up and coming stand-ups, super well-known, really famous stand-ups. everybody of every shape and size are in there, and we wanted to capture it. So all of that stuff that we shot in there, that was kind of, we shot a lot of the stuff of just hanging out and having a good time and going over and hanging out with those guys and with Matt and with Liz, who's the manager there, and then with Chloe and Jordan and Reggie, and a lot of that stuff just kind of happened in a very unscripted way.
Wow.
That's why it had that very sort of, fluid vibe to it, and felt very authentic because it was. But we had a lot of nights where we'd go in there, certainly in pre-production. We were tentative at first. We'd go in there because they were like, what are these actors doing here? Is what we thought. But it turned out they were all really welcoming. And when we told them kind of what we were doing, they didn't really give us as much shit, but we did just kind of, there was definitely a lot of joking around.
I dig that. I dig that a lot. I mean, look, now you have a new range of people to like invite on the podcast too, because they're
That's
all like,
true.
comics are good people. No, I will have to admit, I like your podcast. I love the premise of it. I think it's absolutely hilarious. And I love that it was this thing that was like born of the pandemic. Like,
Yeah.
it's so crazy how successful you guys have gotten with it. And I don't know, as someone that has, I don't know how intentional that was, but stumbled into being one of the best podcasters on the planet. How do you feel about it now?
Not intentional. We had no idea. We didn't know that anybody would want to listen to our BS. And we just started doing it. And the first few months, it was just fun. We were having a good time. We were recording episodes, and then it started to kind of gain momentum. And I'd have people reaching out going, man, I love your podcast. Or we'd run into people in the street and they'd be like, I've been listening to your podcast. I'm like, really? And it just kind of became this thing. And it's been, I was saying to somebody recently, I still can't believe that people, like our bullshit, because we're just messing around.
Well, it is fun to watch y'all mess around. We're mostly talking obviously about is this thing on, but I really also wanted to say I've been a fan of your career. Specifically, I know people know you from BoJack Horseman, but I don't think people realize how deep you've been in voice work and for how long and just like how many crazy things that you've done. But there's one aspect of your voice work meeting real life that I don't think people have paid attention to as much, and that is your performance at the Oscars as Batman. Like I don't think people knew that. Like I knew that because I was like, I could see Job's face from a mile away. Sorry, no offense to anybody else. Didn't matter what you had on. What was that night like? Because I still think to this day that's like an Easter egg for a lot of people.
That was a cool night when they said they wanted to do this whole crazy thing. And then I was going to go up. They wanted me to put on the Batman. I had to go to Warner Brothers as they had to refit an old Val Kilmer suit to get me into it. It's really tight. I was a little bit taller than he was. And that Questlove was going to play Robin, and that we were going to go out there, and that Andy and Yorma and Akiva and the boys, that they were going to do their bit, and that Tegan and Sarah were going to do, like, it was just be this crazy thing. So we kind of, remember we rehearsed a little bit about what it was going to be. And then that night going over there to the Oscars and going downstairs and getting into the suit and suiting up and coming out and just seeing backstage the chaos of all the people. And what struck me, I remember, and nobody knew we were going to do this, and nobody knew it was me, even backstage. And I'm wearing, the cowl and doing the whole thing. And I just remember Marion Cotillard walked by me, and really quietly, just to me, she whispered, "Didn't I kill you?" And then walked away. And I was like, sick. That was really cool. And then going out and doing the bit. And yeah, I don't think people knew it was me either. It was just like but it was so fun to be a part of.
No, it was so great. That was a great moment. And like, I love those Oscars bits, whatever. I'm an Oscars editor. They warm my heart. People find them cheap. I loved it. And
Oh,
I
good.
definitely,
Oh, good.
I'm one of those people to be like, did you know that was Will Arnett? Because that's Will Arnett. That's BoJack Horseman. Like, really want you to like understand that. The other thing too, and I think it's funny that this is the case, but I don't think there'll ever be a year where there isn't a quote from BoJack Horseman that goes viral. Like it just seems to never it'll be like another year and there'll be like another moment. I'm just curious for you, how do you clock how like lasting that piece of media is and just like how it just seems to be forever timeless? Because I think everybody has a BoJack in their life, or maybe they are a BoJack at some point in their life. Like, I don't know. There's not a lot of animation that I think is that prescient for people that they still can revisit it years later.
Yeah, I think of it less as a piece of media
Mm.
and more of a piece of art. Sorry, just to make the distinction. I'm kidding. I it is remarkable how many people or how much it means to people and the lasting value that it has. That it is surprising, and people do bring it up. I was at a Q&A the other day in London, and the moderator asked, we kind of went through a bunch of different things, and he started talking about BoJack, and he asked, and he made some stuff, and I actually said, how many people here in the audience have seen BoJack? And it was quite a big theater, and I would say 90% of the people put their hands up, and I was astounded by that. I couldn't believe it. And so, yeah, it's great. I mean, look, I think it's such a testament to the quality of writing of Raphael Bob Waxberg and what a brilliant guy he is who created that show. And it just shows that he wrote something that on a lot of levels meant a lot to a lot of different people for different reasons, but they really connected with them in that it was even more than just a animation. There was more that it really affected them, and again, it's just such a testament to what a brilliant guy he is.
And again, the show, I think, I get why people are always coming back to it personally, but it's again, I love that it's also something that it's that show that you tell people, have you seen this yet? It's like The Wire, The Sopranos, like it becomes part of the life. You can't be dialed in unless you've seen BoJack. I'm going to get out of here, but there's one last thing I want to talk about, and this is literally a deep cut from my own endeavor. You probably barely remember this role, but I watch this movie like every single chance I get, and that is Blades of Glory. And you're so good in it. Like, you're
Thanks.
like literally literally one of my favorites is y'all. Like, I just love that movie so much. Is there anything from that movie that you could say from that experience at that time? Because that feels like it was a fun set.
That was super fun. I remember so much from that was a really fun experience. I remember we shot a lot of the exteriors up in Montreal in the dead of winter, and I was wearing this super flimsy JFK suit. He was supposed to be wearing like a suit. He was doing like a JFK Maryland thing as part of our ice routine, skating routine. And so I'm wearing this basically leotard that's like wearing nothing and skating and doing all this stuff in Montreal and being so frozen. And then I got to chase Will Ferrell, and his character gets to wear like snow pants and a jacket. And I just remember
Yeah.
being like, dude, like, hey, let's go again. I'm like, go again. I can't feel my body. Forget my feet, my body. I do not feel my body. And
Is
then,
that the difference between Toronto Canadian and like PG Canadian?
yeah,
Like, you can't.
Montreal is like a different level of cold. Montreal
Okay.
is like, that's where you send your enemies to freeze. It's the
Perfect.
greatest
Well,
city, but yeah.
I get it. Well, thank you so much, Will. Really appreciate it. And congratulations on the movie and all the success.
Thank you so much.